Hey everyone, welcome to Be the Change. My name is Lily Mott, and today I'm going to be talking about how change comes when you ask yourself what's bothering you right now. My guest this week is Saadia Abubaker, and some of her roles include podcast host, public speaker, and workshop facilitator in Wales. I really enjoyed getting to know Saadia and hearing her story, and I'm excited to share some of her work that she's doing with you. So, without further ado, let's get started with this episode featuring Saadia Abubaker.
So currently, right now, I host a podcast, and I've put a pause on my podcast for now because I'm producing another podcast for a youth organization. And the reason why I decided to take that up because the idea was very similar to what I wanted to do for my podcast, but for season 2. And I really believe in like collaborating with other people. If other people have the same mission, come together, collaborate with them, and it's a bigger platform because they already have those established networks. So that's one part of what I do. So that's podcasting. Another part, which is really exciting for me, is workshop facilitation. So I take all of the experiences that I've been able to have over the 7-8 years that I've been on this journey, and I kind of like to give back now by sharing that with my peers, and I share it in workshops, and with the workshops are tailored for young people. And because I'm a young person myself, when they look at me, like they can relate to me in some sort of way. There's always that certain connection because that there's that relatability there. So I provide like the tools and the tips and the practical steps that they can take to change their lives as well. And the last part of it is kind of contributing to campaigns. So I don't have my own campaign, but I love to contribute to other campaigns. So I'll work with organizations, mental health organizations, organizations that are fighting for racial inequality, or organizations that really believe in youth empowerment. They'll have whatever projects that they'll have. They might come to me and they want my insight, or they want me to get involved in some sort of way, and I'll do my best and contribute to that as well. So right now, that's where I'm at right now.
Thank you for coming on the show, Saadia, and I would love for you to tell me some about your background and maybe some of the challenges that you've faced. And I guess just tell me more about the story that got you to this point where you felt like you could use your voice for positive change and get started with Saadia Speaks. Can you tell me more about what led to doing this work for you?
Yeah, so my journey started in so I'm in the UK, so you got comprehensive school, and for you, I think that's high school. So it started comprehensive school. I'm right now I'm at university, which I think for you that's college. And I think I was about 13 at the time. And I'm really fortunate to have gone to a school that valued pupils' voice. And I think that is really, really important, because when you go to a school that values pupils' voice, it means you are listened to, and you are cared about your voice. Like when you bring forward your opinion on something, you know that you're listened to, and you because you see the action straight after it. So that's the first key thing, because then when I was able to see that, oh, I'm listened to, I just kept on kind of I kept on raising my voice in the sense, and then ultimately that allowed me to not have that fear of like sharing my voice and my opinion. So it all started in comprehensive school, and it started through. So we have something called like school council, which is like kind of like school rep. So you get to represent your entire year group, and you come together. You discuss the issues with the schools and issues related to the students. You might have ideas. So I remember the first thing that I really cared about was like anti-bullying, because I'm not going to say I was bullied myself, but I did receive a lot of racial discrimination. And because I started wearing the scarf at a young age as well, I received Islamophobia as well. So I felt really passionate about that. So I was online one day and I came across this campaign called Anti-Bullying Pro by the Diana Award, and they had this program where they would go into school and like they would train the students in the school how to be anti-bullying ambassadors, so how to kind of like speak out against bullying, and what they could what could they change and put systems in place in their schools so they could really call that out. So I managed to actually convince the school and the headship team to bring that organization in to train us, and it was absolutely like great. And I stayed on. I actually, like, it's really funny because normally with school council you just save for like a year, but I ended up staying for like 3 years and got so many different experiences, like getting to interview some of the teachers. Even I got to interview, we were having a new head teacher, and a lot of the time, like, the head teacher that was leaving, he was there for like years. So it was just like, it was very crazy to me to be, to just have that luck, in the sense like I get to interview the future head teacher, and like we have the voice in making the decision, or we get to like sit and like ask questions, and it was just a great experience. And we'd get to go to like really big forums, and you're meeting other students from other schools and discussing really important topics like human rights, and you're like speaking in front of like hundreds of students. So that really allowed me to like grow in my confidence. So that was one part of it. And then I got involved with a program called the Young Ambassadors Program, and it was by an organization called the Youth Sport Trust, and that was more related to like facilitation of sports and encouraging your peers to take part in sports. And so I got involved with that program, and that was like a completely new chapter then, and it's literally brought me to where I am today. If it wasn't for that program, I actually don't know where I would be. And that program is like a pathway. So when you begin at the lowest level, and that's like bronze, and then you have silver. I began at silver, then you have gold, then you have platinum, and you just have more responsibilities at each stage. You have more responsibilities, you're trained more, there's different opportunities. And so that's in terms of like the levels, that's the difference as you make your way up. And so as I started at silver, and there was like seven of us in my school, and we would literally just volunteer. We would help out with all the sports events going on, anything sports related, we'd be involved with that. But I was also doing a lot of volunteering in my community. So I would be volunteering at like the sports events in my community as well. And that allowed me to progress onto gold. And then at gold, I was like, okay, that's when I began to I began to reflect a bit, like, oh gosh, like this is actually something really big here. And because there was only 4 gold ambassadors in my entire city, so now we went from being about maybe, let's say, 60 silver young ambassadors in the entire city. Now there's only 4 gold, and so now you're representing your entire city. So when you're going to the conferences, you're meeting the other ambassadors that are representing their towns, their counties, or their cities. So for me, it was a really big deal, especially after I came back from the conference. You get to go to this conference, and you get to meet the other ambassadors, but you get to also do a lot of like workshops and learn a lot as well about how you can become a better leader. So when I came back from that, I was like, this is something completely different, and it's such a big privilege and a big responsibility, and I don't want to just have the name like, oh yeah, you're a gold ambassador, like that's great, but like for me, it meant more to me than just the name. So then I kind of started thinking to myself, like, what is it that I want to do here? Like, I want to make a difference. And I started asking myself, like, what is it that currently really, what's the thing that really bothers me? Like, I literally just sat down and asked myself this question. I think I was around like 16 at the time. So I was asking myself, like, what's bothering me right now in terms of sports facilitation? Like, what's bothering me? And at the time, like I mentioned to you, I was still wearing the scarf, and I was going to athletics competitions, and I realized that I was the only the only Muslim girl there, and Muslim girlfriends, they would have an interest in sports. So for me, I was like, the barrier isn't that they don't want, not interested, and they don't want to get involved. They do want to get involved. There's just some other mental challenges and other blocks that that we need to come around. And I was like, okay, why can't I be that person that like just breaks down some of those barriers for them? Because I remember when I would post some of my videos from training. I mean, I'd get some of these girls would be coming up to me and they're like, how do we sign up? So it made me realize, like, okay, if I do things like put out videos or facilitate sessions, like the girls are going to be interested. And so I started thinking about, okay, and I was going to start college at the time. So I was going to move from school into college. So I was like, okay, I'm going to have to find out who the sports coordinator is at the college. So the member of staff that I would need to speak to. But before that, let me speak to the girls at the college and find out from them what would they like and what would I need to do to make sports more accessible for them. Because for me, I didn't have any challenges, but I knew they had the challenges. And unless I found out what they were, I'm not going to be able to like accomplish my mission of making sports accessible for them. And when I asked them, they gave me all the answers, and that was great. And I took that to the sports coordinator, and they really supportive. I mean, the college was really supportive, and that's another thing. I don't think I would have been able to do all the things that I've done if I didn't have that support around me. And so he told me, like, okay, like, this is what we can do. We can provide you with the space for you to do your own sports sessions. We can give you the transport, because college is bigger, you have different campuses. So we can give you the transport, and every other week, so every Wednesday, every other week, we would take the bus, go to a different campus. I'd ask the girls what sports that they'd want to do, and then we do exactly that. And that made me progress then from gold to platinum, where now you're getting more training, and it's more intense training. So you get to go on these like 3-day residential trips, and you're trained by like one of the top education consultants, in my opinion. And you're getting trained on things like goal setting, decision making, team building, leadership, networking, like all the things that, like, I mean, now looking back, I'm like, wow, like, some adults don't even get this type of training. Like, this is life-changing stuff. I mean, it really did change my perspective on so many different things. And I was seeing the difference that it was also making on my studies and because it changes your mindset. It's a mindset thing. And I saw the changes in my leadership as well. So all of that, and I think that ended in, I think I finished that. It was a whole year, and I finished that in, I want to say 2020. Yeah, 2020. And obviously then we had the pandemic, and the pandemic came and put a hold on everything. And that was the time where I was just, for me anyway, I was doing a lot of reflection. And in March, we obviously had the death of George Floyd and the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement. And that came, like, because of everything that was going on social media, that brought up so many of my own experiences that I had just repressed. Like the school that I had went to, it was predominantly white. And so I experienced like so much like hate and racism and Islamophobia from like other students and even teachers. But a lot of it I had repressed. And now that like we were having these discussions online, now there was like explanations for me to then go back and process some of those experiences. And that was really difficult, because it's as if that experience is happening all over again right in front of you, but it's like you're just able to process it well. And it just built up a fire inside of me, like, this is so wrong, because I was able to understand the impact that it had on me. And the impact that it had on me was like, I didn't have any self-esteem, and I didn't think that I was like worthy, or I didn't think that I deserved to accomplish like great things, and I would doubt myself a lot. And these experiences were the experiences that allowed me to be like, okay, Saadia, you do have a lot of potential, and you do deserve to do great things, and you are capable of doing those things. If it wasn't for all of these experiences and opportunities, I still think I'd have a complete different perception of myself and of my worth as well. And so I was like, that is completely unfair. Like how, I just started thinking about my peers. Like so many of my peers would have these experiences as well, but it's going to impact them in different ways, and it's not nice when I know that for some of them it's going to impact them in such a negative way. You know, they might not be able to do well in school, thinking about like their mental health, and it just built up a fire inside of me. And when it comes to like social action or anything you want to do, you also have to educate yourself first. So I saw out the opportunity, and the opportunity came to do a peer research project, and it was on racism in education. So I was able to then do that like deep qualitative like research on, you know, young people's experiences of racism in the education system in Wales, which is the country that I live in the UK. And after that, the fire just grew inside of me even more, because now I'm like hearing about all of these experiences, and I'm like, okay, I've got to do something. And I just started speaking out. I just started speaking out. I started speaking about my experiences, started speaking about, you know, the other young people's experiences. And because of the peer research project, we focused on like the recommendations. So what young people want to see and what they think should change and how it should be changed. So it's like it kind of gave the solution. So I was also focusing on that a lot as well. And at the same time, I was also doing a lot of work with mental health. So I was getting involved with charities like Mind, and all of this. I was involved with like charities, so that made it really helpful in the sense that I wasn't on my own, and I had that support around me to deliver on these projects. And then what happened after that? It's a whole timeline. What happened after that? Like I said, I carried on speaking out. So I was able to really find my voice. And I was invited on multiple panels to speak on racism, especially racism in the education system. And also on the other side, it was like I was speaking about mental health and how mental health impact people of ethnic minorities like myself. And I had also started my social media pages as well, which it's is all about like just empowering and inspiring young people, and that's where I focus on, you know, you can do it. Like, I believe in you, and I'm going to believe in you until you believe in yourself. And once you believe in yourself, like, that's it, you've got it from there. So that's where the Instagram page came from, Saadia Speaks. And at the time, I really didn't know how I was going to do that. Then the podcast idea came, and I started doing the podcast as well. And I think that's about it. I mean, I've given you the whole like timeline, but I think that's the background, and that's how everything really like started, and that's what's brought me to where I'm at today. And I know that I've missed a lot of things, but like those were the key things. And you mentioned challenges. I think just for me, the biggest challenge was like that doubt and that self-belief that I didn't have in myself. I had the courage and the curiosity to go after these opportunities. I was like really curious. I was like, oh, like I wonder what this opportunity is about. And then I'd have the courage, in the sense that I'd be able to eliminate that fear and go towards and dive deep into those opportunities that would put me right outside my comfort zone. And those are the two things that allowed me to grow confident in myself. But I wasn't confident back then, and I was really self-insecure, and I didn't like who I was, because of what society had told me about myself, because of what people had told me about myself. And I think these opportunities have really allowed me to just be like, you know what, like, you're like, to just accept myself for who I am. And it's just like, you know what, you're doing great, and don't let anybody ever tell you that you're not doing great, or that you're anything. Don't let anybody tell you anything about your skin color. Your skin color, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't define you. Your the head that you cover, the headscarf that you cover your head with, that doesn't define you either. It's the character that you hold. That's what defines you. Like, how kind are you, how merciful are you, how honest are you? Like, those are what matter the most. And I think, and it's still a challenge for me now. I still doubt myself a lot, but I'm really fortunate to have been able to build that network around me, where I'm able to come back really fast and like really tap myself and be like, listen, you can't doubt yourself. Like, you have all of this evidence, all this experience, you can't doubt yourself. You have to keep on going. So I think that's been the biggest challenge, is like, that anxiety and that like fear of like messing up and that self-doubt. And it's like, if you can find it so easy to be negative about yourself, you can flip it and you can say positive things about yourself, especially if you're the type of person where you're empathetic towards other people. Why can't you be empathetic towards yourself? And those are literally the things I would say to myself. So that's been the biggest challenge, I think, so far. It hasn't been anything else in terms of the work. It's always been that mental challenge.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you were able to find that support. And now you have this platform through your podcasting to encourage others to share their voices and to overcome those challenges. And so I have one more question for you. Lots of young people, particularly high school students, college students, as you mentioned, that's what they're called in the US. They want to create change and they want to make a difference, but they may not know how to get started. Do you have any advice for those people who may be listening?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so important to ask themselves one question, and that is why. Like, because a lot of the time, like, they know they want to do something, right? And what's challenging is getting started. But if you ask yourself, okay, why do I want to do this? And like, why is such a powerful it's such a powerful question, because ultimately it's like, what's the purpose here? Like, why do you want to do this, right? And when you ask yourself why, and this is the approach that I follow, and it's called the golden circle. And this, you can use this for anything you want to do, any goals you set, any dream, any ambition that you have. But you start with why, and it's by Simon Sinek, if anybody wants to like search it up. So you start with why. Your why is your purpose. So you say to yourself like, okay, why do I want to do this? And this is the same approach that I used when I started my own, like, the project with the girls in the college, where the first thing I said to myself, like, why? And I was asking myself, really, what's bothering me and why is it bothering me? And so I ultimately found my purpose, and which was like, well, this is something that's really important to me. I want to be able to give that accessibility to Muslim girls and girls from ethnic minorities, because they also deserve to have fun and experience the benefits of doing physical activity. So that's my why. And then you go and you say how, and with your how, you brainstorm a couple of ways you can go about that idea. So you literally write these things down, where you write down, okay, how can I go about this? And you think about maybe one person you can speak to. Think about one action you can take. It might be a small action, it might be a big action. What's important, that it's an action that you can take, that you can get started on straight away, right? I think those are the two things that I had wrote down anyway, where I wrote down, this is somebody that you can speak to, and this is something that you can do. And the thing was, I can set up my own sessions, and I can speak to the sports coordinator, right? So that's your how. And then the last thing is your what, which is ultimately what it is that you're going to do. And it allows you to draw up like an action plan. But ultimately, in the middle of that is your purpose. And your purpose, always going to keep you going. I mean, when I find things are getting tough for me, I might be like low on motivation, whatever it is, I'll remind myself, Saadia, why did you start in the first place? And I'll be like, okay, well, you started in the first place because of, and I'll literally explain to myself and remind myself of the vision that I set out. So that's one that's like I found really, really beneficial to me. Another thing that you can do is find opportunities, like, because it's not always easy to be like, okay, I'm gonna do this. It's just not straightforward. Like, it's not always straightforward. But if you find an opportunity that will get you closer to that goal, that's great. So in the story that I mentioned to you earlier on, it was like, I realized that I had this fire inside of me in regards to racial inequality. And I knew that I wanted to do something about it. And so the opportunity was taking part in the peer research project, and like after that other opportunities opened up. So it's like finding one opportunity that you know that's going to get you closer to the goal. And for me, for me, I define that as I'm going to be able to educate myself and I'm going to be able to do more about it. So that's also another thing, is like find an opportunity that will get you closer to that goal, or that will get you closer to getting started, or will even support you in getting started. And I use the same approach with the podcast. I was procrastinating on it for such a long time. And I was like, okay, let me find an opportunity that will get me closer. And the opportunity was a podcasting course. So I did that for a month. And then after that, I was like, I felt like I had the confidence to actually start my own podcast. So I hope those are the two things that have been really, really, I mean, I've made a big difference in my journey. So I really hope that other young people listening to this, that they find that useful as well.
I found Saadia's story to be so inspirational, and I'm glad I got the chance to share it on this podcast. I think her whole path to finding confidence in herself and then being able to do this work to make that path easier for others is a great example of being the change you wish to see in the world. I want to highlight Saadia's advice about asking yourself what's bothering you right now. Everyone, absolutely everyone, has something that they wish could be improved. It may be something small, or it may be a huge systemic social or political issue, but everyone has something in their lives that they feel could be improved. Saadia's words of advice are to ask yourself what that something is, because asking yourself that question and identifying a problem is the first step toward devising a plan to change it. I love Saadia's advice, and I think it's a great way to take a step back and reflect, which is something I know that I should definitely do more often. So, I think we can all take Saadia's advice and spend some time reflecting and asking ourselves important questions, because change comes when you ask yourself what's bothering you right now. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and you can connect with Saadia on Instagram at Saadia Speaks. If you want to talk about anything I mentioned, please reach out to me by email at lily@bethechangepodcast.org or on Instagram at bethechangepodcast. Tune in for my next episode, but until then, be the change you wish to see in the world. Bye, guys.